Let me begin by thanking our colleagues in the Apostles in the Marketplace for again giving me this opportunity to speak at the 5th Nation Building Workshop of the AIMP. I think the Apostles in the Marketplace has consistently provided a platform, and perhaps one might say a most engaging platform and a committed platform for producing change agents, and not just any type of change agents, but those who are prepared to do the very difficult things and to work very hard and to remain without being discouraged as they plod on to trying to make a difference in their communities and in the nation. The Apostles in the Marketplace is gradually getting quite a few people into government. And of course, you know that I'm in government, OK is in government, Victoria, who spoke a few moments ago, is also in government. I think that we will soon get a critical mass the way we're going, and we might just be able to get everything we've been talking about done. So I'm extremely excited and delighted to be at this vision building workshop. And I particularly like the theme of this year's workshop, the pathway to an industrialized Nigeria. I think that this, obviously, as you know, is an important subject for our country, given industry's ability to provide opportunities for large numbers of people and enhance economic diversification by enabling the growth of other economic sectors and promoting even, trade, promoting industry, and all of the various aspects of business that we expect, of commerce that we expect, will enhance the economic life of our nation. I think that perhaps it's also important to bear in mind that as many of you who have at one point or the other thought through the issues that affect our nation, I'm sure that you have also identified what is an important aspect of that development. And that may well go beyond, just the questions that we've looked at in terms of the development of industry. I know that already you've talked about ease of doing business, you've talked about all the factor endowments and all of the various things that enhance industrialization in a community or in a country. But I would like to focus and pay some attention to what you may describe as some of the softer issues, but nevertheless important issues. And one of those is what is called the culture of a nation or the culture of a community, and how that may affect industrialization, how that may affect economic growth. I think that when you look at this whole question of culture, and by culture, of course, one is not talking about traditions necessarily in that sense, but more importantly, one is talking about those values and the ethos that are promoted by a community or by a society. What are the values? What is the ethos that a community promotes? What are the values, for example, that ought to be promoted if we want industrialization, if we want economic development? What sort of values should we promote? Some of the work that's already been done in various parts of the world suggests that cultures that promote thrift, hard work, ethics, trust, and the common good tend to boost rapid industrialization and robust economic growth. I'll take a few minutes this evening to talk briefly about developing the right culture to support industrialization. I will link this to a few comments I made in 2016 when I attended the AIMP dinner and then touch on the subject of seeking the common good. I hope I can do all of that within the next 10 minutes or so. The last time when I spoke at the AIMP was, as I said, in 2016, and I spoke then about the need to create a new tribe of people across the country. And if you permit me, I will quote what I said then. I said, it is my respectful view that to build the new Nigeria, we need a new tribe. A tribe of men and women of all faiths, tribes, and ethnicities committed to a country run on the high values of integrity, hard work, justice, and love of country. A tribe of men and women who are prepared to make the sacrifices and exercise the self-constraints that are crucial to building a healthy society, and who are prepared to stick together, fight corruption side by side, and insist on justice even when our friends are at the receiving end. A tribe consisting of professionals, businessmen, politicians, religious leaders, and all others who believe that a new Nigeria is possible. End of quote. So on that occasion, I was talking about the culture of a new tribe that I believe could transform every facet of our society. So a major component of our industrialization aspirations, therefore, is to promote a culture of integrity, of hard work and trustworthiness. How? How do you do this? And I think that we can do it by demonstrating empirically that a culture of integrity, hard work, and trustworthiness actually pays. In other words, that it makes sound business sense, sound economic sense, to be honest, that it makes sound economic sense to be forthright, that it makes sound economic sense to have integrity, to have a good work ethic, that individuals and societies that practice these values do much better than societies that do not. And let's look at common practices. I'll just take a few of the common practices today that inhibit commerce or that inhibit the growth of our economy. Let us just take pilfering and stealing in various ways. And I talk now about the business environment, not in the public service. Stealing, pilfering from establishments. A lady who was in our church who had opened a card shop somewhere in Victoria Island, cards, greeting cards, and all of those kinds of things, was planning to open other branches. She hoped that she would expand, open several branches, and of course engage more people. One day, a friend of hers came to her store in Victoria Island and asked her why her cards that were being sold in the shop in Ikpori were cheaper than the ones that she was selling in Victoria Island. Of course, she didn't have a store in Ikpori, but as it turned out, some of the girls who were working with her had used her inventory. They had taken her inventory from a warehouse and had opened their own store in Ikpori and was selling the same cards, of course, using her inventory, and had been selling it for a while. So obviously, there was no question that she could no longer, continue to hope that she could just simply open branches, because the smart advice for doing business, after that, is that you must be physically present wherever your business is. And if you are not there by yourself, overlooking it by yourself, seeing to every part of it, you most likely will lose that business. So, and this means that opening branches, getting more jobs, getting more people engaged simply won't happen. Or even just take sending your driver. Just send your driver to go and buy, fuel in a petrol station. Of course, he's likely to buy half or a third of what you sent him to buy. But he's not alone. The guy who is selling petrol to him is also poised to cheat him. So if he doesn't pay attention, that fellow is going to sell only half of what he wants to buy and take full money for it. The station manager himself has probably colluded with the truck driver delivering fuel to the station, and is not going to deliver the full quantity. Even in the depot, somebody is colluding with somebody else in the depot. So you find that this chain of pilfering, this chain of conduct that obviously, demonstrates lack of integrity and forthrightness, always conduces to a situation where businesses cannot grow. Because if you, the proprietor, have to be there at your business everywhere, everywhere your business is, you have to be personally there, then there's no need, there's no way you're going to expand. All societies where MSMEs have worked, there must be a certain measure of trust. You must be able to open branches of the business. People must be trusted enough not to pilfer from what is being sold. One small hotel owner was saying the other day that he had to shut down a bar that he was running somewhere in Abuja because his bar attendants were selling their own wine, not his own. So they'll bring their own wine and sell their own wine while his own remained on the shelf. So he never really lost wine, all he lost was just the patronage, and somebody else was making the money and using his bar to make that money. So owners of business, regardless of size or complexity, are confronted with agency problems and moral hazards. In the last few years, we've seen how shareholders, even in banks, have simply woken up one morning to find their banks collapsed and huge liabilities and criminal liabilities confronting them on account of the malfeasance of their management. There's a simple lesson here. Agency is fundamental to any form of business. No large business can grow, or no business can grow larger if it's run by the proprietor alone. He must delegate, he must open new branches. But agency requires trust and integrity on the part of the agents. Once that is missing, the proprietor will be reluctant to expand the business, and everyone suffers. Everyone suffers. I've been speaking for a few days now about the impact of corruption on development, especially the development of our own country. And I'm talking here of the impact of grand corruption. Of course, whenever you talk about these things, everyone knows that that's the elephant in the room. Anywhere you talk about it, when you talk about it to a group of businessmen, everybody's shifting from one point to the other. They know that's the elephant in the room. There's no one who understands what's going on or what has gone on in our nation that doesn't recognize that corruption is the reason for Nigeria's recursive growth. And it's not just a matter, and that when you look at, when people talk about the Nigerian economy, they say, oh, one of the problems we have, or the main problem is that we relied on a single commodity for so many years. Yeah, that's partly true. But what is true, or what is even more potent, is the fact that that single commodity was frequently hijacked by a few. That the proceeds of that commodity was very frequently hijacked by a few people. And that the few people who hijacked it simply privatized the money. And that the money was never used for development in the way that it ought to be used. And I cited the example of a type of contract that was called the Strategic Alliance Contract, which was some kind of a contract between the NMPC, represented by the MPDC at the time, and some individuals. Of course, this was just a collusive, corrupt contract. But the nation lost $3 billion on account of this, because they simply didn't ever pay back the money. They simply lifted oil and never paid for the oil. Now, if you look at what $3 billion can do, if you look at what $3 billion, spent right in putting infrastructure in place, $3 billion, by the way, was almost a third of our external reserves at one point. And that could have built the Abuja-Kaduna-Kano road. It could have built the second Niger bridge. It could have built the Enugu-Port Harcourt road, the East-West road, Shagamu-Ore road, Kano-Maiduguri road, Abuja-Lafia, Akwanga-Kefi road, Lagos-Abeokuta, the old one, plus the first portion of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. But some guys privatized all that. Some guys simply pocketed that. And this is really at the root of our problems. Corruption influences everything. Even the decision on what to do is influenced by corruption. So we need to really understand that an ethos, a culture of forthrightness, a culture of integrity, and insisting and holding people to account for corruption is crucial. And it's never going to be easy. And one of the reasons why I like to speak at AIMP is because we've been talking about this for years. Everyone who has been with us at the AMP for years knows that we've talked about this for years. We've talked about this year after year. And we know what the issues are. And we know how difficult it is. You can't solve problems of corruption overnight, but you certainly can make an effort, and you certainly can try. You certainly can make the effort, and you can try. Because when corruption is systemic, such as it is in our country, everybody in the system fights against those who want to fight corruption. And one day I sat with Pastor Oke and another member of our team, and we're looking, and we're talking about how difficult it is to fight even within the system, how difficult it is. And we are even luckier because the president, at least the president is an honest man. We know he's an honest man. So we expect that things should be easier. But no, you are being fought by a system. The system itself pushes back every second. I'm not talking about the external, I'm talking about even within the system. There's always a pushback. There's a pushback within the public service. But the important thing is that there must be a determination to make sure that we plod along and that we push for holding people to account, that we push for putting in place systems that prevent corruption, systems that prevent graft, systems that prevent, especially some of the bigger issues of some of the bigger agency issues that we experience frequently in government. And I think that that's one of the critical reasons why it's important for us, as we look at the problems of industrialization, as we look at the problems of our economy, to address the peculiar problems of our own economy. I was saying at the Quarterly Business Forum a few days ago that sometimes when we talk about the Nigerian problem or when we talk about the Nigerian economy, we talk as if this is the economy of Norway or Sweden or somewhere where they've developed a culture of doing things properly. It's not so. It's not so at all. What we're dealing with here is a situation where many are committed to stealing the resources of the state for private purposes, and that's that. And that doesn't, and they are not shy about it. They are very brazen about it, and they're prepared to do anything that it takes to capture the resources, of the state. I just talk also briefly about a work ethic, and I believe that the work ethic is also an important part of what we must imbibe and what we must teach, and what we must also continue to purvey to our people so that there is a change in the way that things are done. Now, a work ethic that emphasizes diligence and commitment, hard work, is evident in my view in all successfully industrialized countries. There is no industrialized country that does not or has not put in place somehow a work ethic that emphasizes hard work, that emphasizes diligence. Whether it's the Chinese who are famed for their Confucian work ethic or the Europeans with their Protestant work ethic, everyone who has succeeded has somehow managed to imbibe some ethic that emphasizes diligence and hard work. And the reason is simple. Productivity depends a great deal on attitude to work. Productivity depends on attitude to work. There is no society that has a lax attitude to work that is then productive. A productive society is one where there is a culture of diligence, a culture of hard work, and that is so important in the mix. I just spent a few minutes on the concept of the common good, or the notion of the common good, and why it is so important that in our quest for nation building and industrialization, we should also imbibe this concept. What is the common good? It was Saint Thomas Aquinas of Italy who once said, and I quote, he said that he that seeks the good of the many seeks in consequence his own good, end of quote. That he that seeks the good of the many seeks in consequence his own good. More recently, commenting on the many economic and social problems that American society now confronts, a Newsweek columnist, Robert Samuelson, wrote, and I quote, he says, "We face a choice between a society where people accept modest sacrifices for the common good, or a more contentious society where groups selfishly protect their own benefits, end of quote. Simply put, it is seeking the good of others as you seek yours. It means putting yourself in the shoes of others, seeking to understand their perspectives, and seeking common grounds for progress. The concept of the common good is one of the main pillars of the Christian faith, as many of us, I'm sure, know, and the scriptures evidently bear this out. Acts chapter 2, verse 43 to 47, Mark 12, verse 31, and many of the major religions of the world also emphasize the common good. Even Buddhism emphasizes the common good. Islam even emphasizes the common good also. Even ancient philosophers like Aristotle, Plato, all emphasize in one way or the other this concept of the common good, showing that seeking the greater good is ultimately beneficial to societal advancement. It is the concept of the common good, in my opinion, that tempers the harsh edges of free enterprise, so as to provide an opportunity in economic planning to adopt certain models of social enterprise, introduce social safety nets, so that the vulnerable and the poor are also provided for as we plan, especially those of us who believe in the free enterprise system. Many issues that confront us on the surface which on the surface appear to divide us, can be better addressed by broadening our perspectives, seeking to understand the other side, and seeking common ground and the common good. But ultimately, the spirit of social good finds its most powerful expression when individuals like you and I take on causes bigger than our personal aspirations and make the sacrifices to accomplish them. The concept of the common good is one of the reasons that I'm so proud of the Make an Impact project, which has been presented here tonight. In line with what my brother and friend Oke has said, I urge everyone in this room to find, obviously many of us have burdens for various things, but when we do find that burden, I would urge you to engage the AIMP Impact team and transform that burden into a project. Some of us may have burdens, or some may have burdens that are huge burdens, and that if you were to discuss how it will be implemented, it may probably take all of us in this room to do so. But I think that we can take these burdens a bit at a time, and as we present them, there will be others. Almost invariably, there will be others who are prepared to come along with us to make some of these things happen. The truth of the matter is that everybody who has ever made a difference, or anybody who has ever made a difference in their communities or in their societies, have had to take one single thing and made it a burden. For some, it's politics. For some, it's one aspect of governance. For some, it's rights, human rights. For some, and we've seen the incredible work going on in the hospice, the cerebral palsy hospice, the one on abused women. There are several thousands of things, or several thousands of ways where we can truly make a difference and where we can truly make an impact. And I think that every one of us has that capacity, and it doesn't have to be something large. It doesn't have to be something that will, it doesn't have to be something that will cost a lot of money. But I think the most important thing is the passion and commitment that we bring to it. Once more, I'd like to thank the leadership of the AIMP for always providing a platform for us to better ourselves, for us to improve ourselves, and for us to examine ourselves and examine our contributions to society, and to recommit ourselves and to rededicate ourselves to the society, to serve the common good of the people of our nation, and to serve those who are not in the position that we find ourselves, and ultimately to do what it is that the Lord Jesus Christ has taught us all to do, that is really to serve, and to serve the interests of other people. God bless you all.